evening, everyone. Welcome to Ham Radio Basics Live, Season 1, Episode 11. Very special guest, Frank from Tank Radio. Frank is not with me this evening. Not sure where he is, but I have some things to talk about. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and we'll do that. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's see who is all in the chat here tonight. Have Chris, W5BBM, Sam Weaver is in here. Ape is in here. Welcome, Ape. Good to see you. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Paul Gans here. Adam is here as well. Okay. All right. Well, it's good seeing everybody tonight. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I was going to talk to Frank about this tonight, is it seems now some radios are going in cycles where they're completely out of stock. And I was really, really shocked by this one. Okay. Now it's something, it is a very popular radio right now. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, now imagine my surprise. I was out on DX Engineering yesterday when I saw that the IC705 item is on order. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Is it just DX Engineering or what? So let's take a look here, and we're going to go ahead and let's take a look at some of the other ones and see what's going on there. Take a look at Gigaparts, and it's the same thing here. Move the screen down. Reserve yours now, ships in 2 to 4 weeks. And then we're going to go over to Ham Radio Outlet, and I don't know why that's not coming up, but we'll get that here. Okay, and Ham Radio Outlet is the same thing. Out of stock, delivery will be delayed. And one of the things I did was I talked to my contact here, Andy Cowley. Welcome, good to see you here tonight. One of the things that was very interesting was with all this was, I talked to my contact at DX Engineering, and basically he told me what's going on here is a cycle, and he can only speak for DX Engineering. Can't speak obviously for Gigaparts or Ham Radio Outlet. But what he told me was that what happens is you can go out, for example, on DX Engineering, and I'm pretty sure on Gigaparts, pretty sure in all three you can do that. You can go ahead and purchase one and place yourself in a queue. So when stock comes in, in the order that the orders were received, they'll be able to go out. All right. Well, what happens is this has been a cycle for a while with a lot of the products that are popular. And what happens is, for example, my contact told me in 2 weeks, which is probably about the middle of May, probably a little more than that, about May 15th or so, they expect to get them in. So what's going to happen is a lot of those will already be spoken for, and this cycle continues. Now, a lot of this is also due, there's obviously the part shortage, and that's been going on, and that's kind of been a constant thing as well too. And everything, shipping, the whole 9 yards, everything. Clinton, welcome. Good to see you tonight. It's just kind of been slow. Things have been slowing down. Okay. Shipping hasn't been as fast with COVID and everything. And, finally we're starting to get back to some semblance of normalcy with that. But it's been a very popular, it is a popular rig. I mean, that's probably the best. I'll go on a limb and say, for me, that's one of the best, most versatile QRP rigs that's available on the market today. I mean, it really is. HF, UHF, VHF. You guys know that. I'm preaching to the choir on that one. Now, what's real interesting is one of the other ones that is really popular right now is the Yaesu FT891. If you go out to DX Engineering's website, which I don't have this up, they're saying that they're going to get theirs in another week. Gigaparts out of stock. And they have no ETA. However, Ham Radio Outlet has it in stock, and it shows obviously, you go to the website and you see the locations that actually have this in stock. But what's real interesting is the price on Ham Radio Outlet is $679, and the price on Gigaparts and the price on DX Engineering is $639. There's a $40 difference there. So, if you're looking for an FT891, they do have them at HRO. Just be prepared. It's going to be $40 more. And of course, we all know, that's a legendary radio. It is very popular. And, who wouldn't want to get something like that? That's just, that's part of the game. And again, a lot of this has to do with, this supply and demand, popularity of the radio. Because I was talking to several people, and they really think it's a combination of things, like my contact said at DX Engineering. It's that cycle. People will pre-order them, and when they get a shipment in, those pre-orders go out first, and then there's not enough left for demand, for what the demand is. So again, the whole process starts over again. So hopefully, Yaesu and ICOM will be able to get their manufacturing up to snuff and be able to take care of some of this. Now, one of the other things that's real interesting is, and I've seen some questions about this, and when I was looking for radios early on, I got a real education because, I was, before I got my 7300, it wasn't in stock, and I was looking out on eBay, and I'm like, oh, these prices are great. And somebody said, time out. And I said, what's that? So the radios that you get, if you get them from Japan, they're different frequencies. All right. They're geared for the frequencies over in Japan. That would be the same like if you got the 891 off of eBay from Japan, or if you got, say, the IC705 off of eBay from Japan. They sell them new, and a lot of times, that's not a problem. But the other problem is warranty with something like that. You're always better to stick with something, purchase it, be able to purchase it from a retailer here in the United States versus eBay with something like that. Of course, used rigs, that's a whole different story, and that's part. You're on your own as far as that's concerned. Last week I had on Anthony, and we did a HamVention preview, and that went really well. And one of the things I can tell you, we've got everything lined up for the trip. We got our airline tickets this week. We got our rental car. We got our lodging taken care of. We're all set. I've ordered some more swag so I could take it with me. And it looks like Tank's going to be joining me here. So hang on a second.
Boop, boop, doo, doo, doo. How's it going? I'm sorry.
Hey, no problem, Tank. No problem, Frank. Welcome. How are you tonight?
I'm so sorry. I apologize. I apologize to you, to everyone out there.
No problem.
I misread it.
No problem. Hey, that's not a problem. How are you?
I'm a little white right now. Right. Haven't tuned things here. Let's go in here. That might fix it. No. Oh, man. And color, contrast. I always have to do this. Boink. Drop it. There we go. What is up? I'm so sorry. I thought it was 7 Central. And then Jason just hit me up. He's like, you're going to be on tonight? I was like, yeah, 7 o'clock. He's like, Eastern. I'm like, what? What's going on, man?
Not much.
Just let's you go into it, man.
We're getting ready for, I was just saying as you joined, we got our tickets all ready for HamVention. Got that squared away, got our plane tickets. We're going to fly up because I live in Florida. Got rental car, lodging, place to stay. And we kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone because all 3 of my children live in the Columbus, Ohio area, which is about an hour away. And we'll be able to get to see our granddaughters when we're up there. So it's kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
So we're
That's Dayton. You got me a little flustered here. So
no,
let.
no, no. And what's interesting is I know that area pretty well because two of my three children went to college in that area.
Hmm,
So
hmm.
I'm real familiar with that. Although I've never been to HamVention in Dayton, so this is a first for me.
Oh
Um,
man, it's gonna be
y-
fun.
yeah,
Can't
I'm
wait.
really excited for it. We got a media pass for that, so got that taken care of. So really looking forward to that. Um, one of the questions that I almost always ask, having our very special guest on, Frank, is
Hmm.
how'd you get started in ham radio?
How did I get started in ham radio? Well, I think everyone can figure out Jason, Ham Radio 2.0,
Hmm.
is responsible for this. Me and him worked together about 10, I think probably more now, years ago at a company called Research in Motion. Do you know what that company was responsible for?
No, what?
The BlackBerry.
Okay.
The whole rage on phones before the iPhone came out, and we worked together for a while, and he talked about being an amateur radio operator, and and I was like, hey man, that sounds so cool, and I wanted to get into storm spotting and storm chasing, and I knew I needed to get my license to do that. So I talked to a little bit more, and eventually he got me in touch with the Hearst Amateur Radio Club, and they were doing a technician class. I joined the technician class and I passed my test. I almost aced it completely. I think I missed one on that technician class. From there, I was pretty happy being a technician for a while, just UHF, VHF. Every field day that I got my feet wet in HF, and I'm like, this is so much fun. I can't wait. To play on these bands more. And eventually, I went and got my general license through the Hearst Club again. And now I'm playing on HF and trying to. I'm probably going to try to do some more satellites and other things here to come. But that's kind of like my story getting in amateur radio. I had a similar question I asked a bunch of the YouTubers, and there a lot of other people start, is on CB, and I was not one of those guys.
No, I wasn't either. What happened for me is I moved to Florida back in 2011,
Hmm, hmm.
and one of the things I lived in Ohio most of my life, so hurricane was like a four-letter word. I mean, seriously, I'm like, what's a hurricane? And you come
Hmm,
down here and you got to be ready for it. And a lot of people said, do you have an alternate form of communication lined up?
hmm,
And
hmm.
I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, and then so you got to get you got to get your ham radio license. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I started looking into it, and then I went to Ham Test Online. I think it's
Hmm,
one of the
hmm.
organization. It's one organization. They're getting ready to. If somebody doesn't take it over, they're gonna close. I think in June. It may be eHam Test. 100%. I don't remember the name of it. But
Hmm,
what's real nice about that is, Frank, they rotate the question pool all the time, so
hmm.
you don't memorize answers. You know the answers, which I thought really that was just so good. And within a year's time, I went from technician to general to extra. I mean, within a year, boom, 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 got it done.
Hmm.
And then that was in 2014, and then life kind of got in the way until probably a couple of years ago, and then I started really picking up my interest. Um,
Hmm.
Everybody has a spot. I love what Steve temporarily offline told me when I had him on. He said ham radio is the hobby of 1,000 hobbies, which it really is. Okay,
I call it the
what?
hobby of hobbies.
Yes, it is. It really is the hobby of hobbies. My weakness, okay, my Achilles heel, if you want to say that, is antennas, okay. And my
Hmm.
wife says, "Did you buy another antenna?" It's kind of like, yeah, a lot of guys like to buy, you know, other stuff. But what one thing for you is you're like super passionate about with ham radio, and you have a tendency to buy a lot of.
I want to build more antennas, and I've been trying to learn antenna theory for a while, so I can start building my own antennas and understanding why I need to do the thing I need to do to get them to work. So I understand a lot about the dipoles now. I understand about end-fed halfwaves and how they work. I need to understand more about the um, how balance and work into it. That's my kind of my next thing I'm trying to get into is to understand how balance and how they affect things. Um, as buying things, I buy things kind of as I need them. But right now I'm kind of on a big POTA. I actually backpacks. I'm a big backpack person. I saw To had a new backpack video. Josh did a video, I think, a couple months ago. Jason, I think, did another video a little bit ago also. Um, but I love backpacks and stuffing them full of stuff. I got the new Gigaparts backpack, and it is amazing. I love it for amateur radio. I think it falls flat on just trying to use it on everyday stuff, but for amateur radio, it's amazing. I have two radios in my Gigaparts bag right now. One
Wow.
is the Yaesu FTDX 10, and then I have my G90 in there I got from Jason. I'm trying to hatch a plan to use them at once. We'll see if that happens this weekend.
Well, one of the things before you came on, I found out recently. It was just really interesting, and it's just like I'm out on DX Engineering, just cruising through their
Mhm.
website, and then all of a sudden I see out of stock, IC 705, and I'm like, what? I
No.
mean, that's like always in stock. So
Mhm,
I go over
mhm,
to Gigaparts, out of stock, delivery will be delayed. We're accepting pre-orders. We
mhm.
go out to Ham Radio Outlet, same thing. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I pinged my contact at DX Engineering. And what he told me what happens is it's kind of like a cycle. People will get on a list or they'll pre-order
Mhm,
them.
mhm.
And then when they get them in, most of that order will go out to those that have pre-ordered. So there's only very few left. And then all of a sudden, within maybe a day, it's like, you know, email is when it's in stock or you can pre-order again, kind of thing. And he said that's kind of the cycle that's been going on right now, and that's also happening with at Gigaparts and at DX Engineering with the Yaesu FT891 because that's another really popular radio. It's just
Mhm.
like all of a sudden everybody wants those. But what's real interesting is Ham Radio Outlet has it in stock, but it's $40 more than it is at DX Engineering and at Gigaparts, which as Abe says, that's some beer and pizza money right there. So
Yeah, it might be worth it just to pick it up if you can find it in stock right then and there.
yeah, it's exactly what a lot of people are doing. So it's like, and I wanted to let people know about this because I came across this, and it's just like, it's like one of those things that just stops you in your tracks, and I'm just like, wait a minute, the IC 705, that's always in stock. Everybody
Mhm,
always has that.
mhm.
It's just one of those things. Um, I know you went to HamCation with Jason, and it looks like you guys had a great time there. Now,
Yep.
why don't you tell us about it?
That's Florida, right?
Yeah,
The
Florida.
whole HamCation, HamVention, they kind of run together. It's just easier just to tag them as where they're located. But Florida, man, that was amazing. We had a blast down at Florida. We met I met a lot of y'all out there. My question of the Ham Fest was, what got you an amateur radio? I think it was that time. And I'm trying to think of another one coming up for Dayton. Um, I met a lot of y'all out there, all the fans and people that came up to me, everyone that yelled, "Take radio!" Then allowed me to turn on the camera and get them again doing it, "Take radio!" I love every bit of that. Hanging out with everybody, seeing what we're all up to, and just conversing with all the vendors and then all the other YouTubers. Smoking Ape showed up randomly, like, he came up to me. He's like, put his hands on my shoulder and goes, "Frank." I'm like, "Abe, are you real?" That just, I was taken back. I was literally like cell shocked, stunned for a couple of minutes there. Um but just meeting and hanging out with everyone. We talk to each other all online through discourse and on the radios and in text messages, and it's just fun when we finally get to come together and embrace and celebrate this amazing hobby that we have. That then the whole we have side areas that we go and join beer and cigars and whiskey at. That's fun.
Well, you'll be happy to know. Well, my wife no longer has access to it, but she works for what used to be called Hava Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
and we live in Tampa, Florida, and one of the big staples of Tampa was cigar manufacturing back in the day, and it's now ITG Brands. It got bought out. They're a big tobacco conglomerate, but she used to have access. I'm like, I could have hooked you guys up with some good. I hooked my son-in-law up when he was over in Afghanistan. I hooked him up with some good cigars. I
Mm-hmm.
could have hooked you guys up with some good cigars, but she doesn't have access to that anymore. So
Bummer.
yeah. I was thinking the same thing because I saw several pictures of you guys with your cigars, and I'm just like, man, that would have been great, been able to do something like that. So, I'm looking forward to going to. Are you going to Dayton?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Now,
We
are
will be
you are
there.
you gonna drive up, fly up?
I'm flying. Jason's offered me to take me again on driving, and I just it's vacation time. I love road trips. I love jumping in the road. I love and then driving. Like I haven't been to this state and to activate it. We got to find a park. Pull over now and do all that spontaneous fun stuff. But I just kind of strapped on vacation time for the amount of things I do for amateur radio. There's Huntsville, Orlando, Dayton, and then we have a probably a trip or two within the YouTubers. We did the Grand Canyon last year, and then I need like some personal time for just me to unwind with my own
Yeah.
family. So this year I decided to fly up. I'm flying late-ish Wednesday, and then I'll be there till Sunday morning. Like me and Adam are jetting right at Sunday morning and go back to the airport.
Gotcha. We're coming in. We're gonna get in Wednesday morning. We're gonna head out Thursday to the media booth and do a walk around on Thursday to pick up tickets and media credentials, and then
Hmm. Hmm.
we'll be there bright and early we'll be there all day Friday and probably half a day Saturday. Um,
But
we're gonna be staying over in Columbus, which I was telling a lot of people. I had Anthony N8VOX. He absolutely he has nothing but great things to say about you, Frank. He was telling me. He said
Aw.
you'll enjoy having Frank on. I said I'm looking forward to it.
Minus, I got the time zones wrong.
Do not worry about that. Do
Oh,
not worry
it's
about that
already
at all.
crushing me. It's crushing me. I got to make it up to you somehow. I'll figure it
Don't
out after stream.
don't worry about that. Well, good fist bump, and we'll be good. We'll be good. There at Dayton. One of the things that he did tell me was he said you need to have your walking shoes on. He said, let me tell you again, you need to
Hmm.
have your walking shoes on.
Hmm.
He says it is well, it's in Orlando, it's compact because it's like just a couple of buildings, okay, and then the flea market outside. But here, there's I think at least 6 buildings
Hmm.
that you have to go through.
Hmm.
And he said, and they're all huge. They're all big.
There's about 5 primary buildings, and there's a secondary building that they have presentations, and then from there you're talking the largest swap fest that you can think of.
Yes.
Um, and if I remember the property right, they have almost a literal horse track. Is that the one? Yes, that is the one. They have a horse track, and they set up all inside the infield of that horse track of just rows and rows and rows of trucks and RVs, and you just have everything under the sun for sale there, and it's so much fun. Break in your shoes beforehand. That's I gotta say, break in your shoes beforehand.
Oh, I'm planning on it. Well, you know what never fails. Okay,
Hmm.
I know you're going to be flying up. I'm going to be flying up. Whenever I go to like a flea market or the swap market in a ham radio fest, 9 times out of 10, if I'm flying up by airplane, okay, I'll find something I want, but I can't take it on the plane with me. Okay.
Hmm.
Conversely, if I drive somewhere, I won't find anything. Okay. It'll be like, 100 of the same thing that everybody has. And, like nothing there. So it never fails. And I'm sure that's what's going to happen. We'll be getting up there and I'll see something. I'll be like, oh man. And it'll be like, But you know what's nice though, and Anthony reminded me of this, and I forgot about it. They have a booth where if you buy something, they'll ship it for you back home. You
Hmm.
obviously
Hmm.
have to pay for it, but that's a good thing. And I know they did in Huntsville, and I'm pretty sure they probably have it at Dayton too. Whereas if you buy a rig or something else, they can test it out. They can bench test it for you to make sure it'll power up. So those are some good things that they do there,
I'm
which
sure they have it there. I think they did talk about that. I don't remember where it's at for sure, but I know a couple of these hamfests do have a testing bench that you can go and utilize. And sometimes there'll be even a couple of guys there to help you out. You try to figure out if there's anything wrong with the equipment.
Yeah, of course, a lot of that stuff is older than me. As I say to my kids, Dad, you're older than dirt, and I said, yeah, no joke. Okay, I get it. I'm a year or two away from retiring, so I understand what you're saying. It says that equipment was probably new when you were born. I'm just like, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you guys.
I
But
want some of those boat anchors behind me. I think they'll be awesome things to have behind me, and I'll love to have working at one point.
oh,
Once I get all this stuff built out and actually learn and get working at tube operating radio. That would be fun.
yeah. Well, I came across at the old church that I had gone to, they had an amplifier for the sound system there, and it was all tubes,
Hmm.
and I listed it on eBay for the church. I got $1,000 for it. This thing it was literally a piece of junk, but the tubes were intact, and I triple bubble wrapped them, and I got them to him, and he was like so appreciative because he couldn't find a lot of tubes you just can't find anymore. So
Hmm. Hmm.
he was super appreciative of that. So I know you said you got the G90 and what was your other
The
the
Yaesu
HamCation
FTDX10.
DX10. Um,
Yeah.
what kind of handhelds do you have?
Oh man, I have owned so many bell fangs. To no, wait, let me walk that back. I have lost so many bell fangs. It's not even funny. Oh man, I think I have or used to own 4 bell fangs. No idea where they are. I've torn my house upside down trying to find them, and they are just in the ether.
They grew
Um,
legs.
the one I've managed to hold on the most right now is the first version of the Anytone. I can't think of the right name. The DMR one.
Okay.
Um, that is a great radio. I have revision 1, and they're now on 3 or 4. And it is still, even the newer revisions, a great radio. They have GPS built into them very nicely. The version 2s and 3s do APRS natively. I really like that handheld. Yes, the 878. That's it. Thank you very much, Chris and Jeff. Um, is a great radio. That's what I use mostly. Since I'm kind of connected to Jason, I had to do DMR because he's always doing DMR everything. Um, but to be honest though, if people are still asking me what digital mode to do on UHF and VHF, the answer is go talk to your clubs first, because it doesn't matter what modes you get. If you're the only one using that mode, then you're not going to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
go talk to your club and be like, what are we using around here? And they might say A Star or DMR or Yesu's Fusion, and get that mode, because then you're going to be able to use the most out of it. Don't really look on the specs themselves and be like, oh, one's better than the other. Well, just figure out what people are using around you, so you can use that and use that frequency.
One of the things, and I agree, it's so important to get hooked up with a good club. Now, there were two clubs that I joined in the area. One of
Hmm.
them I found out with me being 64 years old, I was the youngest person in that club. Okay.
Hmm.
And, they pretty much did a lot of things by paper, even though they did have a presence online. And it was not real conducive. I'm not going to say not friendly. It's just they did things on a much slower type of basis, and it really wasn't there. conversely, I found another one where, they're very active. They meet 2 or 3 times a week just to go out for breakfast or lunch, or brunch kind of a thing. They'll just do random, just go to the park and let's set up, and not even POTA, just go out and do some radio, as they say. What they welcome families in there as well. It's so much. It's so important, and that's one of the things I tell people that have just started. And I think it's a failure point with the whole ham radio thing. And I've talked about this. I talked about it when I had Josh on, and when I had Jason on. One of the big failure points is, we do so well in getting people educated and getting them, their technician, or getting them their general and extra, and then, all of a sudden, then there's a void. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've preached, and I was told when I got started, is to get hooked up with a good club. And when you get hooked up with a good club, that's going to make a big difference. I mean, I can't tell you, for example, how many questions Jason and Josh and others have answered for me over the years. I mean, it's just been, I'd have a laundry list like about that long, and they've been great.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing beats an in-person, Elmer, having somebody there with you.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's my first answer if anyone says or asks. I just got my license. Now what? Search your city and put amateur radio club or ham club, and you probably will find one, especially in the bigger cities. I guarantee it, you're going to find one. And that just then you can have access to Elmers and access to other people that know how to do something. So you're not just doing Google searching and trying to figure out why is it not working for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can get, and one of the other pieces of advice I give to a new ham, but he goes, well, you know what? I really like that IC 705, but it's a QRP. What's QRP? It's like, and then I said, look, time out. I'm going to put the brakes on here. All right. And I told people this. I said, I would rather see you get like an HF radio, like an FT891, or say an IC 7300, and get on there, because you'll have some power to punch through. And basically, that's what I tell people. I said, the 705 is a great radio. I said, but you're limited. The maximum you can get is 10 watts out of that radio. You won't be able to punch through, and you'll get real frustrated. Even though you can hear them, they're not going to be able to hear you.
Even working that G90 that has 20 watts over the 5 watts, the IC 705 has. I got frustrated several times of trying to do activations. I was like, oh, I know I could get farther if I only had 100 watts. Don't let your first radio be a QRP radio. Let that to be a challenge for later. And if you still want that 5-watt challenge, well, guess what? There's a power button, and you just crank that power down to 5 watts, and then let the challenge begin.
Exactly. And I've seen so many of the guys, I've seen Jason, I've seen Josh, others have done that and have said, just do that. Just, dial your rig down to 5 watts or 10 watts or 20 watts and try it and go out there. Now, I've seen some guys, the way when propagation is real good, they may cut it down to 1 or 2 watts. Okay. And then when propagation is good, they're still getting good, good connections, which is fantastic. So, and a lot of it, and here's a great question. Okay. And I had this told to me when I started, and it was like one of those ones that I would cringe, it's like, ooh. Somebody goes to me, I said, all right, I'm looking to get a good tuner with, say, an FT891. And somebody retorted back, and this was out on one of the groups when I was asking questions about the 891. You have a resonating antenna, you don't need a tuner. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So I'm like, ooh, you are just a sad ham. It's like instantly you knew you were talking to a sad ham right there, because then I had 30 comments underneath telling me, this will be a good one. If you're using an end fed, if you're using a dipole, this is probably going to be a little better for you. If you're going to use it more outside, this is probably going to be better than inside, kind of thing. It's just like you want to run across those sad hams, and it's just like you want to go like this when you run across these people.
Well, a lot of things can affect resonance. So you set it up, and if you're going to POTUS, you set your antenna up, you make it resonate one spot. If you go to another park, it's going to have different ground properties, and it's going to affect the resonance, and you're not going to probably get it as high, or you might get it higher than you when you first tuned it, and your resonance is going to fluctuate a bit. And just
Mhm.
having a quick little tuner real fast just to help it, it'll be very nice. If you have a radio, if an antenna and a radio that doesn't move, go for that resonance, baby, because you're going to
Oh,
get the
yeah.
best out of that antenna that you can. And I see both reasons. If one of the things I do want to build later is a fan dipole, and I want it resonant on every frequency, so I don't have to use a tuner.
Oh,
And but then
yeah.
I'm just going to keep tweaking and tuning until it gets perfect.
That's it in a nutshell. One of the things for me, and this is something I could kick myself for doing it. I had a Yaesu FT7DR, okay, and my wife got it for me several years ago after I got my licenses, and I was all excited. And then life got in the way, and I sold it. And it's one of the things that I regret to this day selling, because I wish
Mhm.
I had that doggone thing now, because it's fetching good stuff out on eBay. Frank, what piece of equipment have you sold that you're like, ah, man, I wish I had that back?
Well, I haven't sold it. I lost it. The one of the original Baofengs that were completely wide open before the FCC slapped them down. That radio, if it can tune to it, it will almost transmit on that frequency. Um, I like that radio because it was open for us to use. I think we should have more liberties. I don't like the radios that are locked down with just in our privilege bands, because we have that the role in the FCC. If it's a true emergency, we can use any and all means, and that means we can operate outside our frequency. And that radio allowed me to do that. I know there are a lot of mods out there that you could do to a radio that remove some of those restrictions, but I think they should come out of the box like that. We got a license. We are going to operate and be good ham stewards of our bands and operate within our privileges, and we don't need the equipment to enforce what we already agreed to, in my opinion.
One of the questions I've asked just about
Hmm.
everybody
Hmm.
that I've had on recently, and I know you've done a video on it, is an IC 905. Um,
Hmm.
for example, here, and I'll just state, here in Florida, we don't have a good microwave community because guess what? We don't have here in Florida. It's flat. Okay, there's no
Hmm.
hills. All right, and you really need to have some kind of topography, to use a radio like that. What's your thoughts on the 905?
Um, I like the 905. Right until it really came out, there weren't a lot of radios out there on the market that will really open up those gigahertz frequencies. I like the idea how they removed the transmitter from the actual body of the radio, because as you get up in that higher frequencies, you get more and more losses over cables. And the there's just a lot of to that radio. Is this very interesting for me. I like to play with it, but I don't know if there are any gigahertz stations around here for me to talk to. Um, but I think it's going to try to open up that market. And I'll be happy if that radio takes off, and I would love to play with it at some time. Um, but I think it's a good radio for the market. I don't think anything bad of it. I love to get my hands on it.
Yeah, I know Josh has his hands on one, and I haven't watched his video. I've been working 65 hour work weeks. I'm in IT, and
Hmm.
it's just
Hmm.
like we had a major project hit right now, and it's just like all, pedal to the metal right now. But I know Josh put out a video about it, and I talked to him, I talked to Jason, I've talked to just about everybody I've had on, and one of the consensus is, and I really like this. Josh kind of brought that up, was, we're using, the use it or lose it consensus with, some of the bands out there. If the FCC makes it available to us, we need to use it and take advantage of it. And I
Yes.
wholeheartedly agree with him. And
Yes.
I think what's going to happen in this case with the 905, it's going to kind of be a wait and see kind of a thing. Oh, we'll see some of the guys get it, and work on it and work with it and take a look at it and see how it performs. And and what the tweaks that they'll do. It's kind of like, to me, it's like, you know, everybody was all excited when the 705 came out. All right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that thing sold like hotcakes. Even, everybody said, oh, it doesn't have a tuner. And it's just like, but it still sold well. This one it's a little different because, it's going to take more than a piggy bank, breaking open one piggy bank to pay for this. Because, that, and then the antenna array and everything, you're talking a good chunk of change. So I think a lot of people are going to pull back, take a look, see what others have with it and have success with it. Because I know down here we don't. There's no microwave community down here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that could change. I hope it does. That would be nice. But it's kind of like a little bit down the road as far as that's concerned. So
Well,
we'll
it's
see.
doing also decoding of fast scan TV on the amateur radio fast scan,
Mhm.
and it's coming a little feature rich for the money you're putting on there. Having that decoding done directly on that unit, you don't need a computer. I'm interested if you can hook up a camera to and also transmit.
That'd be
Um,
interesting.
because if it can decode, technically it can also encode, maybe. It he when he was showing it off, and he to go back, I remember distinctly seeing two images or two places for a second image, maybe a transmit and a receive image. Um, I got to go back to that interview and rewatch that. But it seems to me that they're putting features into this, and unlike other radios, I don't really know if there is a radio that natively does FT8 or any other digital modes built into the radio. I know some radios, will decode CW for you. That's kind of cool. Um, but having that built into the body, that's an awesome feature. I'm hoping it takes off and we get more uses out of those digital or more uses out of that gigahertz ranges.
Yeah, I think we will, Frank. I think, once more people adopt it, and we'll see. Maybe Jason will get his hands on one as well, and some others, and give it a try and get people familiar with it. So, and I think you'll probably see some clubs purchase something like this and have it for club use, and hopefully, it'll start the ball rolling and getting a lot of people, on board with this. One of the things for me that I have a lot of, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier, the hobby of 1,000 hobbies from
Mhm,
TO.
mhm.
Um, one of the things that, I have a laundry list of things that I haven't done yet. Okay. One of them is CW, and I'll eventually get there. But the other thing is soldering. Now, my dad years ago, and I'm talking years ago, taught me how to solder, and I did pretty well back in the day. Now it's like I need to take soldering 101 because I'm just like, I'm totally gone from that. Okay, everything that my dad taught me is gone, so I need to pick that up again. How are you at soldering? Have you done pretty well with that?
Well, back in college, I used to work at a computer repair shop doing hardware repair, and we soldered motherboards and capacitors and other things all the time. After I let that job, I did not pick up a soldering iron until I started amateur radio, and that was a great number of years later. And I found that my skills have diminished back to, a complete noob when I'm looking at some of my solder joints. I'm like, oh, I used to be so much better. But practice, man. I just started doing kits. I picked up some of these, LED kits, and let's build a FM radio. Is a cheap Amazon kit, and a couple other things, and just so I could start building my skills up better. I like building these infed antenna kits that Adam K6ARK is built, Jason antenna Jason, a or no, it's KM for ACK. I'm sorry, Jason, your call sign's blanking on me. The coffee ham radio antennas and all these others. They're just fun to build, and just practicing those starter skills. I one of my next projects, I don't know if it's going to happen this weekend. I need to go out and actually trim a wire down, and I want to have a linked, segmented wire for my end feds. So I have certain bands that are resident, and I don't need to unravel all 40 feet of this end fed to get on the radio.
Yeah, see, for me, the big challenge I have, I have plenty of room inside the house, but where we live, I live in an HOA, and um, I'm going to have on probably in a few weeks the HOA guy. He lives here in Florida, and
Hmm.
he does such tremendous videos, and and not only am I going to have him on, I'm going to try to pick his brain because for me, I could look at probably doing a gutter antenna, but we only have a gutter on one side of our house,
Hmm.
and I don't know if that's enough. Just I have a zillion questions because every time I set up, and what I use is I have a Chameleon MPass 2.0, and I'll set up a vertical, and I have I don't have I just bought the stock kit, and it's pretty resonant. Like, I've tested it, it's pretty good as far as the bands are concerned, and I can pick up things really well with that. But it's a real pain in the butt because I got to set it up and tear it down and all that stuff because I live in an HOA. So that's kind of a work in progress for me. How about you, where you live? Do you have any problems with antennas or anything?
No, I'm actually the ham in my neighborhood that doesn't have an antenna up on his house yet. I literally have 4 houses that way, a guy with a giant stepper IR antenna that does full legal limit. I know because of when I try to play radio in my backyard, he blows me out of the water. And then literally in the other house next to me, he has a fan dipole up, which is pretty much kind of the one I want to put up in my backyard. I resided to myself this year. I'm going to get some antennas up, and I'm working on that right now. But I have no HOA, no restrictions other than the normal tower limits. Plus, they might be a little more tougher around me because literally I'm 2 or 3 miles away from DFW Airport.
Ah,
Yeah, if you see some of my videos and you hear an aircraft taking off in the backyard, it's because I literally don't hear it. And when I'm filming up sometimes on top of my roof or in the backyard, I'm deaf to them, and I'm editing video. I'm like, oh, there's that aircraft, and that sentence is not usable. Maybe I'll go back and re-say it later. Nope, nope. Or at late at night, a couple of videos you hear a train in the distance, which is always fun. I love trains. Um, but no, I don't have any of those restrictions in my house. I'm glad I don't have any. I almost bought a house last year in an HOA, and then I was going to have to start fighting that battle. That's not an antenna, that's a satellite dish, or do some other, sneaky antennas. But I would have antennas everywhere. If
oh
I was an
yeah.
HOA, I would just put them in anything and everything just because I loathe HOAs.
Well, one of the things that they'll let us do is put up a flat 20-foot flagpole,
Mhm.
which I can do because I know there's flagpole kits. And my problem isn't the flagpole. I mean, I can get that set up whole 9 yards. My problem is putting out radials, okay, and not actually putting the radials out. We pay as part of our HOA dues. We don't. We pay part of the fee is a company comes out and cuts the grass every couple of weeks.
Interesting,
Okay.
interesting.
So what has to happen is, and I kind of talked with several people, and they suggested maybe doing this. Like, I talked to To, and he said maybe late in the fall when they don't, because they come out like once every 3 weeks, is to get the radials out there and to get it to where the grass will grow over it, and they'll be down and they'll kind of be in the ground, kind of a thing. Because these guys come along on their lawn, I mean, they're like rip roaring away. And what I'm going to have to do is build like a little, put some bricks around the flagpole or something like that, so they don't do
Yeah,
that.
or
So
I think some kits show you how to bury them, so
yeah,
you get them into the lawn, so you don't
yeah,
have to worry about mowers.
yeah. That's what I'm looking for. I did find a what I thought was a good kit, but then somebody told me there's one of these companies, and I don't know the name of it off the top, They said they would send out like part of the shipment, and they say, "Oh yeah, we're delayed. The other part's delayed," and they never get the other part of the shipment, and they're kind of notorious for it. I think they're out of Utah. Um, they really famous for that. If anybody in the chat knows that, just drop it in there. But yeah, so I'm on the hunt for that. So I'm going to be talking to HOA Ham, the HOA Ham, I think is his name, channel. I'm going to be having him on in a couple weeks. Well, next week I have on one of your favorites. I'm going to have Smoking Ape on next week.
Ooh, I love
yeah.
Smoking Ape.
Well,
Smoking Ape is awesome.
Well, you know how I got started. My very first show that I was on, T.O. invited me on to Coffee and Ham Radio. Okay. And I got hooked because, originally there was another gentleman with Coffee and Ham Radio. He's no longer with them. But, they asked me on. They wanted to get my perspective because I have a drone channel. Okay. It's called Bill the Drone Reviewer. And they wanted to get my perspective on how drones interact with, ham radio. And I said, oh, of course. There's several people. I had on Matt, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? And, he had a video where he dropped an end fed up over a tree and, had a release mechanism from his drone. And, that's one of the things. I saw another gentleman, he attached the wire to his drone, took it up about 200 feet in the air. It was up in the air for about 20, 30 minutes. He was getting contacts like nobody's business.
And it wasn't affecting the stableness of the drone, not interfering with the GPS signals.
Nothing. And
what
it's
power
great.
was he running?
The other thing that you can use drones for is, if you have a tower, you can inspect the tower instead of having to go climb up the tower. You can take your drone around it and be careful flying it, but just, you can take a look at it. So, there's multiple uses for drones with that. And what's real interesting is, and I don't know if any of the guys are here tonight, I had several follow me from my drone channel who are also ham radio guys. They follow me over here, which I thought was really cool. They're great.
Well, isn't there also crossover? Some of the HD video decoders use amateur radio bands, or some of the transceivers or the controller stuff, aren't they also on amateur radio bands?
Right. The like the FPV racing drones, the ones that people crash, and I'm crashing all the time and go upside down and all that.
Yep.
You have to get your technician license on that because of the frequencies that they broadcast on, which I never knew that. I was like shocked. I saw one of the drone guys getting his ham radio. I said, "Really? What are you doing there for?" And he was telling me, and I said, "Really?" I said, "I had no idea." It was just, I got clued into this. So
and can't you also up the wattage or your transmit power probably to a full watt versus the microwatts? I knew this because I was trying to do a RC project a while ago, and I think the max that we can use to transmit to controlling our radio control craft was up to 1 watt, and I was disappointed because I wanted to run 5.
Well, that's for I don't mess around with the they call them the FPV drones. I don't mess around with those at all. I'm more like the camera drones, like the DJI type of drones, the consumer type drones. Those are the ones that I've a tendency to mess around with. The FPV drones, the ones where you wear the goggles. I don't do those. I don't do that. I get, my spatial orientation isn't good. It's kind of like, no, that's not going to work for me. That's not going to fly. So, but no, it's so nice to get a lot of these guys, come over here. And one of the things that I always tell people is, I wish the FAA would get its act together like the FCC. I'm not saying the FCC is, all, peaches and cream and everything, but boy, they sure have more of their stuff together than the FAA does, because, we have to get what's called a Part 107 license to be able to, be a commercial pilot, which really isn't that hard. But, they make it out to be this convoluted process. And then now we're having to face a thing called remote ID, where by September, we'll be broadcasting our position to law enforcement. So in case we decide to fly over a stadium that we're not supposed to fly over, or another venue we're not supposed to fly over, that they'll know where we're at, kind of thing.
But some planes already are required to have a tracking or beacon or transponder. There's the word I'm looking for. So requiring aircrafts themselves or drones, small drones, to have the transponder is not that too far fetched. But I do see it's a pull from, well, we already got our pilot license. These aren't heavy aircrafts that, and we're only going up. What's your ceiling? You can only go up to the
400
point
feet.
400 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's a little much in my opinion. But the license to get your private license, it's like a small step down from your full private pilot license for the drones.
Well, yeah.
There's a
The
lot of information on there that I talked to some pilots and they're like, we really don't really need to know that. Yeah, some about ceilings and what airports and all that other stuff. Very, very good information. But then there's a bunch of other stuff about planning and some weather emergency landing spots that it's just like it's not quite hackable because we're only
yeah.
flying within our line of sight, which can only be a couple thousand feet or so. So it's I don't know.
Yeah, I've talked to several pilots as well, and from what they tell me, they said most of that exam is like on the private pilot's exam, and you don't really need to know that as a Part 107 pilot. I mean, there's some
Hmm.
things you need to know emergency procedures with your drone. If this happens, what do you do? Kind of a thing, and understand that. And then, well, they throw a couple of trick questions on there, like when's the you had a drink 2 hours ago. You had a beer 2 hours ago. Is it okay to fly your drone? Since it's only been 2 hours, yes or no? They'll throw you these trick questions on the exam, which are just
Hmm.
really dumb. They asked a lot about sectional charts and knowing where you're at and everything. And like you said, you're really limited to line of sight, which is, for me, it's about 1,500 feet because it's only with glasses, not with binoculars. It's only about 1,500 feet for me. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not going to lose sight of my drone, so I know where it's at all the time, kind of a thing. So, but yeah, that's I'm over the FAA, and we're doing good as far as that's concerned. So, what piece of equipment, Frank, that you don't have that you want to get?
A heavy duty satellite tracking rotor system. I want a big heavy duty one that can handle heavy antennas because I'm going to use it more for than just tracking satellites. Um, but yeah, a rotary so I could track satellites. I was able to pick up satellites pretty well doing it by myself. I was limited on the radios that I had at the time. And if I had the rotor system, that would be a little bit more easier and more toys I could play and show off on the channel. But I want to get back into satellites, and that will probably spark the interest again. Um, I thought about just picking up one of my mobile radios. I have a TYT or Anytone sitting next to me, a full mobile radio that's full duplex, and just piping that into my Arrow antenna and see what it does. But I think I need to get a new what's inside the multiplexer. I burnt out the multiplexer. Me and Mike, K and Mike, N8YL Mike. We he had his 7900, and we plugged it in there and ran 100 watts through it by mistake. And I was like, wait, that was only 10 watts rated. Oops.
Oops.
So I need to fix that first. But those Arrow 2 antennas, you can run two separate radios. You don't have to run it through the multiplexer. They have regular BNC males on the connecting ends to the driving elements of both the 2 meter and the 70 centimeter. And I had two different radios, two handhelds on it, and I was operating both of them. And that was just crazy. And then trying to move the antenna across the sky to track the satellite, a little too much. So I need to simplify it. May we'll see, once I get the ham stack built, that might be my next project.
Yeah, one of the things I have my upcoming project within the next year or so. One of the goals I want to do is to try to talk to ISS because I know it's like
Mhm.
everybody says the two hardest things to do in ham radio is making contact with Bouvet, when they do their DX expedition, and also making a contact with ISS. Those are the two hardest things to do.
I heard
And
the ISS with just a regular antenna. I think it was
yeah,
my signal link, and it was just coming over, and you turn to it, and as it traversed the sky, you can just listen to it.
yeah,
And that was pretty cool. It was just the data downlink though I was listening to. The because you got to get lucky also when it comes over your sky. It's not at midnight or some crazy time, um, and then do they have the repeater even turned on? Sometimes
yeah,
it's not turned on. Sometimes it's not turned on because they're doing maneuvers when they're docking and putting the aircraft, the International Space Station in a particular orientation to allow for docking. They turn a lot of that stuff off because then it get also misaligned and interfere with their communications. So sometimes that's just switched off and no one remembers to turn it back on for months.
yeah, yeah. Well, the guys that do that, my hat's off to them and being able to get there. Well, the other thing is it moves so fast. It's like 18,000 miles an hour.
Hmm.
And one thing, it's in the sky, and it's just like by the time my fingers over here, it's gone.
Hmm.
So you barely have any
You
time
got
time
like
to do
10
something like
minutes, and that's 10 minutes of you constantly adjusting that antenna because it's hauling.
Yeah, it really is. So, because I've seen it plenty of times. And actually, what's pretty cool living down in Florida, I mean, we live about 90 miles away from Cape Kennedy, and you can see every time at night, like if it's clear at night, when they have a lift off, like a lot of times with the Falcon 9s when they're lifting off, you can see them, and it's crystal clear. I mean, you could just see, and it's 90 miles away. And
Mhm.
it's just that's one of the neat things about living down in Florida. The not so neat thing is right now it's gator mating season, and
Ugh.
you just got to have your eyes in back of your head right now. I mean, it's just
Ugh.
yeah. We
No,
live.
I'm jealous of you to see the rocket launches. I haven't seen a rocket launch yet. I'll love to see one. I should have made it out for the first Falcon Heavy. My friend ran down there and saw it, and I was like, I'm so jealous.
Oh,
Um,
there's nothing like it. I mean, it's tremendous. I
mhm,
mean,
mhm.
we're gonna go over to the Cape one of these days when they have it and be right there. But even 90 miles away, I mean, you can see it's like crystal clear. I mean, it's just with a clear sky. More
I
often than not, we have clear skies at night down here, which is really nice. So
I am one of those crazy guys. I want to get the closest that I can. I want to hear. I want to feel it in my chest as that rocket goes up and higher in the sky.
you
Um,
will like even from 10 miles away. Like if it's usually about how probably five to 10 is probably about the closest you can get to them over at the Cape.
mhm,
And
mhm.
boy, oh boy, everybody says it's like it's something you can feel it here. It's one of
Yeah,
those things, and it's just incredible. It really is. It's
yeah.
just
As another kind of passion of mine is astronomy. I love looking up at the sky. I tried my hand for a while at night photography, and that was fun. But I've been kinda disappointed with every time I had a chance to see dark skies, it's either been overcast or, it's not the right conditions to see all the stars, and I'm still waiting to see all the stars, and one of my life goals is to see the, clear view of the Milky Way galaxy strand across the sky. I'd love
that
to
would
see
be
that.
awesome. That would
And
be
also the aurora borealis. That would
yeah.
be cool.
Oh yeah, that would be great too. I know a lot of people have seen that. Michael Martins um, from Wisconsin.
Mhm.
He's taken some pictures of that. Just absolutely great. Frank, it was an absolute pleasure having you on tonight. I am so looking forward. Now, my wife's coming with me to HamVention's Valerie, so you're going to be able to meet her. We're going to be
Mhm.
wearing our shirts, and you should be able to see us. And we definitely want to get hooked up, and maybe sit down, catch a cold one, and be able to have some chats with all the guys. And one of the things I want to say, including you and everybody else, I really love the ham radio community, especially the YouTubers. It's a great group of guys. I know it was great how Jason, went out of his way for when Scott had his accident and started that GoFundMe for him. And I saw Scott just put a video out, and I was so happy to see that.
Mhm,
So glad
mhm.
he's sort of back. It's just a great community of people. Really, really, really love being part of this group. So hang on afterwards while I close up shop here.
Yes, yes.
Everybody, thank you so much for the great chat tonight. You guys were fantastic. Absolutely love it. Next week got Smoking Ape on next week, so be sure to tune in. That will be very enjoyable. All these guys are my favorites. All these guys are my heroes. Like Frank, he's another one of my heroes here on YouTube. So
Well,
everybody,
swing by the back room trailer where we end up parking, and we'll hang out.
All right, everyone, take care. 7-3s, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening.
Bye.